Hey guys, this is John Bokenkamp. I'm one of the writers of episode 701, Louis T. Steinhil. Welcome to season 7. You're listening to the Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
Aaron may superstore, then again he may not. But if you figure out this riddle, you are a smart person. Welcome to the award-winning The Blacklist Exposed podcast. I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs.
I have no idea what that means, and I'm not going to try to figure it out, but I'm sure somebody listening probably will. If you can, let us know. We want to hear what you think. I'm Agent Aaron Peterson, and we are back in black once again for Season 7 of The Blacklist. Thank you for joining us as we discuss number 27 on The Blacklist. This week, Louis T. Steinhil, written by John Eisendrath and John Bokenkamp, and directed by Bill Rowe. Show notes and other intel for this episode of The Blacklist Exposed can be found at theblacklistexposed.com.
I suppose before we get into it, how was your summer, Aaron?
Grand. I did a lot of stuff, man. We went on a cruise together. We did take a cruise together. That was pretty fun.
That was fun.
We had the Hollywood Outsider cruise. We had a cruise full of podcasters and listeners and stuff. And we went to the Bahamas before what happened there. So that was a fun time. It was a good cruise.
Did you meet any secret ladies in the middle of the night while you were there in Cozumel and get stuck with a needle by chance?
I definitely wouldn't admit to it on a podcast, but no, not that I recall. No, not that I recall. Not that I recall. How was your summer?
Summer was great. Did a little camping. We talked, that was with you actually, and we had some fun there. And yeah, the cruise was great, and went to a fun event up there in Minneapolis for a week with some children's. That was a good time, and we just had a blast. So it's good. It's good to be back, though. I think it'll be weird this year because last year we had the whole January to May, like full on sprint to the finish kind of thing. So it'll be weird to have Christmas off again this year.
Which way do you like better? I know it's too early to tell, like doing the pod. I just mean in general, as a viewer, which way do you like better? It
depends for me how they split the seasons. So if it's like 11-11 and they go straight through, no interruptions for the 11 episodes, I dig that, like Walking Dead style, where they do the 8 and the 8 and there's no break in the middle. I just know there's going to be some kind of like come back for 4 in January and then it'll be like another 4 weeks off. I can't stand that. That drives me crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of the old TV model in a lot of ways, right? I mean, that's how TV used to be, and that's not really how people watch television anymore, I don't think.
So if we can go, October we're starting, so that if we go 8 weeks from here, you're talking Thanksgiving, maybe do one more in December. I think that would be a good run for the first half.
And real quick, I mean, we're going to get into the whole episode here in a moment, like we always do. But I'm kind of curious. We're back. You had all summer to sit on it. Did anything change before we get into this episode? Did anything change for you from the last time we talked on the Blacklist in the spring about Katarina, about where they're at? Did anything change for you? Did any of your opinions change or your theories change or anything like that?
From last spring up until the point of starting the episode, did it change?
Yeah.
No, I think I'm still I'm literally sitting at the point where if Raymond Reddington says out loud, Katarina, that is a complete 100%. He is confirming that he is not Katarina because he's asking the question, right? Because if he's Katarina, why would he say Katarina? Unless there's some real big rope-a-dope thing going on. And we've already talked about how that probably would not be a fun thing for the fans to have two people's identities be different.
No. They both had changes. So, no, I don't think that would make fans very happy. But yeah, same thing. He calls out to Katarina at the end of the episode. So he really feels like it's her. I haven't changed that at all.
After this episode, though, there's like one scene where I sit there and scratch my head again, and I'm like, dang it.
All right, I'm done with the show. So you guys, I'm out. I'll talk to you later. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday. let's get into it before I quit. Come on.
That's right. And because we are doing a two-parter here, people, this week and next week, no special agent intel this week. We usually do special agent intel at the end of the episode where we take your thoughts on the episode, but we'll do that next week when we can talk about Louis T. Steinhil as a whole. So the first thing we do, if you're new to the show, is that we go over our profiling question of the week, thoughts from all of you about last week, something that happened that we want you to kind of expound upon and maybe drive the story forward. And then we get into our case profile where we don't do a play-by-play recap of the show. What we do is we actually go character by character and tell you what we thought was great about them that week, what might have needed some help, and of course how it drives the story forward into subsequent viewings as we move through season 7. So before this season started, we asked all of you, Aaron,
what do you want to see in season 7? Wendy Davies said, I'm looking forward to the return of the Troy and Aaron Are Bonkers show. And then there's like smiley faces and tongue sticking out faces. Am I supposed to like reiterate that for a podcast? I don't know. But thank you for that. What I would like to see in season 7 is the show to bridge the gap of what happened after Ilya emptied the bank accounts to where we learn that the alleged Raymond Reddington resurfaced in 94 after leaking confidential documents. Well, I think we'd all like to see that. I would agree with you. Yeah.
I'd just like to see that it was actually Ilya for sure that emptied the bank accounts.
Yeah, exactly. Who is under the knife when that happens? Who exactly is under the knife?
Nuamave Ovik says, I want to see the return of Matthias Solomon, and I am 100% with you.
Me too. He's great. I miss him. I really do. Alice Peterson, I'd like to see Liz become a better agent by showing more curiosity. I'd like to see wrestlers show more than a dry sense of humor. Aw,
I kind of like the dry sense of humor.
Yeah, I want more of it. I want him to be snarky and rude, honestly.
Did you
that
know
would be
this?
my kind of wrestler.
Yep. Sabine said, the final death of Redderina and an early announcement for season 8.
All right.
I'll put it this way, Sabine. I want either 8's coming back or this is it before Christmas. That's what I want.
Yeah, here's what I feel like Redderina's already dead, but I can understand people are holding on to it. That's fine. I either want this is a final season notification because I feel like it's beneficial to know if it is going to be the final season, and I realize they're working on logistics and stuff like that, and they have to look at financials, blah 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 blah, all the business stuff. I'm just looking at it just from a fan. It is nice to know when your show is going to have its final season, and if it's this year, if it's next year, whatever it is, it would be nice to just know what that is because I don't see this show being CSI. I'm sorry, just going on for 20 years seems. I think it would hurt the show in the long run because there's such a mythology. Mythologies always get hurt when you run them too long.
Yeah, and we definitely want to make sure it's not you sitting there in April and upfronts are around the corner and we still don't have an answer, and then upfronts are done and it's Saturday over the weekend like it was last time, and we're all like scratching our heads going like, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh. And there's 2 episodes left. Because then it really just throws the fan into a tizzy. Because if it is the last season and we get enough notice, we'd love to try to set something up that we can all get together and watch a show together. That'd be fun.
Oh, that would be fun. Final episode, have some kind of soiree.
Yeah, definitely. It's been 7 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
We've known a lot of people
for me.
a long time.
I mean, 6 for me. I didn't start until the second year.
You still watched the first season, though.
I did. I sure did from the get-go. Love the show. It put me in a tizzy. I had just never been able to use that word in a sentence. So
one of the best pilots out there.
It's up there. Not as good as Lost. That's a great pilot.
It is a great pilot.
Lazy ending, but great pilot. All right, George Nauman. I would like to see a few of the old questions that still are dangling out there and being debated settled. Namely, why did Red blow up the Tacoma house? And what is the significance of the 1987 date on the ballet program? Me too. Number 2, I would like to see Rosvet Part 2 to fill in the missing pieces of what occurred after Ilya and Katarina hatched their plan in the motel room in order to settle the debate on what really happened to Ilya. It seems like everybody wants to know that, which to me sounds like the last episode kind of answer.
Well, John also said that if we knew what Red whispered to Kirk, that would also end the show. So maybe, because a lot of what I'm kind of piecing together now, assuming that this is Katarina, as we've been told, and she's labeled in IMDb, and the producers and the Behind the Blacklist special said this is Katarina, so let's just say she's Katarina for level setting. If this is Katarina, there's all kinds of new questions now between, like, if I'm Katarina and I love my daughter and all this other stuff, why isn't she going after her daughter? Like, this is her chance to see her daughter again. So there's something that happened between the disappearance and today that made Katarina, I think, a little bit more hard and a little bit more, angry at some people. And those are some neat stories that those could be unpacked and could take the show on for a couple more years.
Yeah, because every indication we've seen in flashbacks and whatnot, which should be reminding to people, they have been through Red's eyes or
Kaplan's eyes.
Kaplan's eyes, right? So it could be seen with a softer tint than the reality. And, a lot of years have happened since then. But we've always seen her as a loving mother and someone who wanted to protect her daughter, right? Would you agree with that?
Agree.
Okay. So that would be quite the interesting dynamic shift if she was not that woman.
Yeah, you could solve the mythology and say, hey, this is who Red is and this is who Katarina is. And you almost feel like they did. They kind of gave you that. He's Ilian, she's Katarina, and they're both out in the open, and here we go. But now we have to figure out why she's coming after him.
If it's true. Judy Miller, to me, it depends on if season 7 is the last season or not. I want to see Red and Liz have a greater purpose to work together as a team on defeating a great evil. Want to know their ultimate connection and all that, but realize we won't get there if season 7 is not the end. Really want to know also what happened to Red's family, but again, realize we may not get there if season 7 is not the end, if it is linked to Red and Liz's connection.
All right. Ellen Purdy said, even though I know it's a lost cause, what I'd like to happen is the same thing I've wanted for the last few seasons. And that's for us to get a whole lot more mythology than we usually do. Well, I don't expect to get any definitive answers like finding out what Red whispered to Kirk's ear or the significance of 1987 ballet has for Red. I would like to get a whole lot more mythology clues spread through the season rather than just in one episode. In addition to even more big mythology episodes than what they already give us. I'm personally way beyond tired of not knowing who Red is to Liz, so I want less blacklisters, especially the ones that include bugs, yuck, and much more mythology given to us in a much faster pace.
See? And that's why I said that earlier about mythology. You always run the risk of dragging it out to... X-Files is a prime example. One of my favorite shows of all time, and they ruined the show by dragging it out for 8, 9, 10 years, and they shouldn't have. And it's not because I don't want... Look, I realize everybody has a job here, and I want them to be happy and to support their families and everything else. A timetable is important to a heavy mythological show, and there's a heavy mythology here, so that's why.
And it's not to say that you can't reinvent the mythology. You can answer mythology
Absolutely.
1, which opens up mythology 2, and then go another 4 or 5 years. But you got to answer mythology 1, and you can't drag out mythology 1. That's where people jump ship.
Yeah. It's just a worry, and we're good so far. I just, the more you go, the more I start biting my nails. Anita Longo, I would love to see a happy Dom meeting his great-granddaughter and making peace with Red. What I don't want to see is Dom die. Also, a young Harold in Kuwait. What happened there? And during the rescue of Reddington from Sea Duke, we haven't found out who this alias belongs to yet. Also, backstory of the triangle, Naomi, original Red Reddington, and Katarina, who killed Naomi. New flashbacks where we see Mr. Kaplan, Alan Alda, Tom, and Kirk. I'm good with 3 out of the 4.
Yeah, I definitely want more on the Sea Duke. Oh, you're talking about just in that last bullet?
Yeah.
I like 3 of those 4 bullets. I'm like, 1, 2, 3. There's 4 bullets. Okay. No, but you meant 4 Pet Kaplan. I got it. I'm with you. I see what you did there.
I really love Kaplan, Alda, and Kirk.
Yeah, New Amsterdam is a great show.
I'm sorry. Were you talking?
Well, because Tom's there and not here.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's tomming out over there. Tom gonna Tom.
All right. Bill said a storyline linking Cooper and Reddington also answers to the Tacoma Park home and the Swan Lake Ballet, and more scenes with Dembe and Aram working together. I definitely want more Dembe and Aram. That was fun. Was that season 4? Yeah, season 4. Yeah. That was good.
Yeah. That and a ramen wrestler, both of them. I want to see a lot of that. We're almost done, guys. Hang on. James Lale, I'm afraid that season 6 is taking me out of what I'll call puzzle level viewership. I no longer have confidence that the writers care about getting the details of how things like fingerprint, DNA, and other databases really work, and that makes trying to solve the puzzle pointless. I just want better writing. Ouch.
Ouch. All right. And finally, Allie over on the Twitters said, want answers to why Katarina is so angry at Red and why she has stayed away from Liz all these years. More wrestler and Liz partnership and hopefully some Keenler moments. Some wrestler or Ram team up could be fun as well. And the identity of the stranger and his relationship to Red on that bench from season 6.
I want to go back to James because I feel like if we don't address it, it sounds like we're just like jumping over it or something.
Sure.
Do you feel like the writing it's not as strong as it has been, or they're kind of? I think what he's saying is that they're taking shortcuts in terms of technology. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I mean, I could see where that's the case, but at the same time, 24 took so many shortcuts over the years, and it doesn't make it not a bad show, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I think there's a level of how realistic do we want to be, and how do we get it into 44 minutes? So there's a level of balance that you have to play there, and as long as I'm entertained for 44 minutes, I'm fine. I'm not going to pick it apart and, she was like, had a blonde strand in her hair in one scene, and then she doesn't have a blonde strand in her hair the next scene. I mean, it happens. We got to shoot this stuff and get it out in 9 days turnaround in tandem. So there's just some things that are going to get missed and are going to get overlooked. It's just the way of the business. It happens. Like the Minneapolis Metrodome last season. That hasn't been there for 5 years.
There is that one's kind of funny. As long as we never get that thing where they get the security footage and they zoom in and it's clearer when they zoom in. As long as we don't ever get that, because that doesn't happen, you just can't make something more HD just by zooming in on it. And as long as we don't have that, because that would be something where I probably pick up my remote and throw it at my TV, because I hate when TV shows do it. CSI does it all the time, or did it
zoom
all
in.
The time.
Enhance.
Yeah. Enhance. Yeah, now they do it with a voice command. Enhance. Oh, look at that. We got that license plate. No, you don't. There's no way you got it. In fact, you got less of it. It looks like a fuzzy white thing. That's all you see. Oh, drives me crazy.
Unless you're like in Michigan or Minnesota, then it's more like a blue tint on the license plate. But
well, next week's profiling question is how a Red escaped from Katarina.
Yeah. Is he going to do it on his own? Or he almost tried to this week and failed. So will he be able to do it again? Or will he have some help?
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
This episode, because it's a two-parter. And we get that. I feel like this one, even though we did get some ground covered. I'm not saying we didn't cover some ground, which we're going to talk about. But don't you kind of feel like we ended up at the end of this episode right back where we started?
No, because Red can at least walk at the end of the episode. He's just not going to be able to after he passes out from giving about 3 pints of blood away.
He has a lot of blood. I love the nurse, by the way. I love her. I think she's great. I want to see more of her. I want
to see what happens with her in the second episode of this, because I have a feeling that either Red's going to get her to work for him, or Katarina is going to use her somehow to get to Red, and because of that, she's going to end up dead. Like she killed that guy from Paris in the backseat of the car. Mm-hmm. Like you've been useful. Thanks. Say something nice over her grave.
That's what I worry about, But we're going to see. Let's get into it. We've got some fun stuff to talk about, so let's get into it.
Absolutely. So before Aaron straps me into a fake French hospital, let's dig into this week's case profile.
I haven't heard that in a while. It's almost like lightsaber fights.
December 20th, right? December 20th this year?
Yeah. Yep.
The saga ends.
Can we have a Blacklist exposed Star Wars podcast? Can we do that? Because people are demanding that.
I feel like we did that one season where it was a lot of Star Wars references. Was that season 2 or 3?
Probably the last time that they made a great Star Wars movie.
I Am Your Father.
Louis T. Steinhil. Do you want to explain to people now that the episode is over?
This was super clever, I have to say. This was probably one of the more clever Blacklister names in a long time, because Louis T. Steinhil is an anagram for the illusionist.
Bum, bum, bum.
And I'm trying to figure out if I'm excited that they explained that in the episode when they caught that one guy, or if it should have been more like an Aram thing, where Aram figured it out when he was doing the bank was traced to the warehouse, which was traced to some other payments that were going, and then he put the 2 and 2 together. I think it would have been more fun coming from Aram than just the rando guy, but it was cool. I think it was fun that they were able to come up with an actual name that actually also meant something. If you remember at the top of the episode, I said Aaron May Superstore, and that actually meant you are a smart person as an anagram.
Oh, that's a compliment.
There you go.
Was it though?
If they figured it out, they're smart. I didn't say you were.
Is there a question mark at the end of it? Because I don't know if that was part of it. All right, so I didn't figure it out, so I am not a smart person.
And the funny thing is, I put in "you are a smart person," and it came out with Aaron as one of the words. I was like, "Oh, I didn't even plan that." That's awesome.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
Huh.
There you go.
That works.
It works.
Well, this is part 1 of 2, so we're left on a bit of a cliffhanger, like we talked about. Here's where we're at. In case, I should say, because a lot of people are probably tuning in that have never listened to this podcast before. What we always do is we do real quick episode summary, and then we break down the episode by character. It's a lot different from a lot of after show podcasts. We tend to go by character because we feel like you get more examined that way, or the more finer details. So that's how we do it. But the basic crux of this episode: Red wakes up in a hospital, cuffed to the bed. He's confused and he's paralyzed. Then he's being interrogated by one Renee Oban. Obi-Wan? I've heard it both ways.
Okay.
A detective looking into Katarina Rostova. Meanwhile, the task force is trying to find Red, as is Dembe, who loves to shoot up people but doesn't kill them. He just wounds them. Come to find out, Red's been duped. I mean, I think we kind of knew that, but he hasn't quite been. He's kind of been duped. Katarina wants to find out who exactly is after her and how to stop them, and Red won't share. I wonder why. So what'd you think of our return?
I had to say that the premiere was actually, it clipped along pretty good. I was probably duped for a little bit when the detective came in and said, I was looking into you and I was looking into Katarina. I was like, wait, no, this is a stage. It's 4 p.m. It's really sunny for 4 p.m. This can't be right. There's something weird going on. So I got it. I called it just before he exits the room, and then the illusion is uncovered to the audience at the same time. So I was just before. So I'm glad I caught it just before, because I would have felt really stupid if I hadn't caught it ahead of time. For as much TV as we watch, anyway.
I caught it about 3 seconds after the episode started. Sorry.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
You are a smart person.
This is, after the Dembe intro, obviously, but yeah, as soon as he says I'm paralyzed, I'm like, oh, I get what they're doing. Okay, they're doing the whole false. They're confusing him.
Well, that part I figured out right away. The fact that they weren't in Paris was the part that was hard to pick up right away.
Oh no, I guess. Hey, usually a lot of times you figure out stuff long before I do, but this one I had pegged pretty much from the get go, and I enjoyed the return. I feel like I wanted probably more conversation, and in my mind, I've watched enough Blacklist. I should know better. This is one where I should just stop your expectations, Aaron. You should know better. I wanted to have a real conversation with Red or Katarina in the premiere, because I feel like that's such a big reveal. We deserve that after a long summer away. You know what I mean? We deserve to have some real conversation, and I don't feel like what we had at the end of this one was.
Yeah, a little chat by the dumpster doesn't quite cut what you would expect to see between the two of them, but maybe that's why it's a two-parter. You're going to get that in the next episode. Yeah, very much.
And that's the trick to doing a two-parter, and that's why we're keeping our full feedback on the episode until next week, because you really got to have both pieces, because this is really, it probably should have been a 2-hour premiere. Based on what I saw tonight, it should have been a 2-hour premiere, but they got to break them up.
Absolutely. Yeah, overall, though, I thought the task force working, Dembe being there, standing next to everybody, that was kind of fun to see Dembe as part of the team, and he's not waiting for a warrant. No, he's not.
And it was kind of fun hearing them talk about some of the things that happened, and Liz just giving things up left and right. But we'll talk about that a little later on, because that was pretty funny. I'm like, well, they are covering some bases. And I will say, we talked to John back in May. Was it May? We talked to John?
Yes, correct.
And we brought up some of the issues we had with the things Liz was doing. And I swear he dressed them right out of the gate a little bit. So, touche.
So let's assume you're a new watcher to the Blacklist. This is like you sat down and this is the first episode you watched. Do you think Liz's explanation to the team and reading in Cooper and Aram works for like the voice of the audience to say, okay, here's what you need to know? Did she get enough of it out there that you could follow the story?
I really, really feel, this is a personal opinion, I really, really feel like her, I don't know, basically summarizing the entire show and very succinctly was meant for a multitude of reasons. But one is that, okay, now you have this Katarina, you have this woman that's perceived to be her mother. In the situation now, she's one of the characters now. Here, we need to get you up to speed as to what's been going on, so you don't have to go back and rewatch every episode on Netflix. here's what's going on. I really feel like that was for the audience, the existing audience, to kind of catch them back up to speed, but it also works for new ones. And I feel like there's enough to get your, what's the old expression? Get your wessel wet, not wit.
Well, you definitely need your wit if you're watching the Blacklist, that's for sure.
Ba-da-bum!
So in case you missed that summary, basically in a nutshell, Raymond Reddington has sex with Katarina Rostova. They make a girl, Liz Keene. Yeah. Liz Keene shoots her dad dead. Raymond Reddington is gone. Katarina then gets friendly with Ilya, and they team up, and then Ilya becomes Raymond Reddington so that they can basically frame Raymond Reddington, take a whole bunch of money, and then something happens between Ilya and Katarina that we don't know about, and that's where we are today. And now everybody knows. And knowing's half the battle.
I just want to add that, it always is. I just want to add to that you had to mention that they had sex. Like, people couldn't put two and two together on that one.
They showed it on the show also. It was on the screen. It must be true. That's what you always said.
Just got to make sure to point that out. By the way, a man and a woman did a little Humpty Dumpty and a baby came out. Just so you guys know.
Big Kaplan watched from afar.
Oh, don't make it weird. But it already is. All right, let's get to our characters. We start with music.
Music is always the fun part, and as Cooper hangs up with the illusionist, and the audience finally does see the illusion for themselves at hand, we hear Scrapper by Liquid Liquid. Then as Red assaults Mila, we hear Tu Piu Bien by Francois Hardy playing on the radio to block out the observers in the other room. And then Cooper and Liz have a heart-to-heart about Reddington on the stairs. You hear Solid Ground by Michael Kiwanuka, and that plays through to the end of the episode. And a little bit of an insider note, that's actually almost like a world debut of the song, because it's not released yet out on the Spotify's and such. It'll be on Spotify at a later date.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you love the music on the show, you can always find the playlists on Spotify and Apple Music. We have links to both of those over on the website at theblacklistexposed.com.
All right, Dembe. We'll start with Dembe. He's busting down doors and kicking ass and also working with the task force. That's really what Dembe did. But he did kind of kick off this poor guy getting killed.
Yeah. Did you like his Oprah impression?
His Oprah impression?
Yeah. You get a knee, you get a knee, you get a knee, you get a knee.
I'll be honest. We watch every episode twice usually. And for whatever reason, the first time I thought he killed one or two of those guys. But then I rewatched it and I'm like, oh no, he just capped them all. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks, especially if any of them play any kind of sports.
Yes. Especially the second guy who got another one because he was trying to crawl on the carpet. That one looked like he shot the carpet in between him and the gun. It didn't actually look like he shot him.
He did. Yeah, okay. He did. He didn't shoot him. He just shot him. He's like, hey, idiot, stop moving.
But that was great. That was a great opener.
It was, yeah, it's pulse pounding. It was great. Before we got to the fake hospital, you didn't realize it was fake.
Yeah.
You said you liked him working with the task force. Why is that appealing to you?
It makes Dembe, when you think about his character arc over the seasons, he came in as just the Reds henchman, right? He was like a character that you might see here and there. He was always driving the car, never said anything. Now here he is almost as an FBI agent of his own, right? He's working to find Red. He's uncovering clues. He's giving tips and information. And I think it's just come a long way for the character in 7 seasons, and that's really a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and last year at the end of the season, he went on his own journey and kind of did his own thing, and then he came back to Red. His journey led him back to Red. So do you feel like that was a rewarding character development?
The journey itself and the coming back to it all?
Yeah.
I think so, because at the end of last season, you remember when he magically showed up out of the woods, out of nowhere, and he took everybody down and saved the day.
Still kind of ridiculous, by the way. Still kind of ridiculous. But I liked it. It was a cool moment, but it's still kind of like, where'd you come from, man?
Exactly. But he came back specifically because something called the Townsend Initiative had been put into play. And because of that, I think that's where he realized, oh, Red's definitely in trouble because of the Townsend Initiative being back in play. And because of that, we need to make sure Red's taken care of, because they're coming after Red, they're coming after Katarina. And it sounds like, from what we understand from this episode, because Oban, the illusionist, he mentioned the Townsend Initiative too. I believe it was Oban that mentioned it, or asked about it. And so what we gather now from the Townsend Initiative, it's basically a group of people who were set to basically go after Katarina if Katarina were to ever resurface.
Yep.
And something triggered them to do that. I wonder what that would have been.
What do you think it was?
Liz asking questions and wrestler asking questions.
It's not really fair to put that on them, is it?
Well, yeah, because those guys that pulled up like from the Russian embassy or whatever they were that cornered wrestler last season, like, why are you looking for Oleander? We don't know if those were Katarina's people or if those were Townsend Initiative people.
No, we don't know. We don't know who it was, but
we don't know. We don't know if these people are Townsend Initiative people right now that are just asking questions about Katarina and then they're posing as Katarina.
We don't know much.
We do not.
But I know I love you. All right, so I don't know why I bursted into song. Aram, wrestler is trying to fix up Aram. That's weird, but he's horrible at it. I kind of like this little additive that wrestler's actually trying to get him hooked up with somebody.
Yeah, let's go back. Wrestler had a fiance who left him. Then they were back together, and then she basically gets like her head cut off. If I remember correctly, she gets shot and gunned down in the street.
Those are two completely different things.
But wrestler's not, his lady luck has not been very good over the years.
I'm just saying, like, pick one. Head cut off or shot in the street. It's not even close. It's not even similar.
I'm trying to remember what all
happened. She's dead.
There.
Let's just go with she's dead.
Okay. and then of course, then she's doing the whole, what was it? The Hot or Not app last season?
Yeah. Well,
Alter Ego. That's what it was. Alter Ego.
And he did sleep with Aram's girlfriend before it was Aram's girlfriend.
Exactly, right? So, yeah. There's just a lot of weird stuff going on there with wrestler and women. So I don't think that's the best place to take advice from.
How do you feel about Aram? I'll tell you what I liked is that Aram's moving on because we've accepted that Samara has moved on. She's no longer on the show, so she might come back down the road. We don't know, but that he is trying to move on. So he's not just sitting there
eating kielbasa and
because he is going on these dates.
He is, and then he found out that they had late parking tickets and a whole bunch of other stuff. And are you really going to not go out with somebody because they had unpaid parking tickets?
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, they can't respect the law. I mean, they're just going to be a problem. I mean, look how many times he's been, in danger. I'm not risking it anymore. You know what? You got to be perfectly clean as far as I'm concerned. And bankruptcy, wasn't that one of them? Like, or credit score or something like that? That's a big one.
That's a flag.
Trust me.
That's a flag.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Parking tickets, Yeah, I don't think it's fair that someone can like troll your, what do you call it, place of employment, and then like give you a ticket because you don't have your sticker on your license plate inside of a parking garage. That's just wrong.
I don't know if you get a bunch of them. That means you're not learning lessons, and people that don't learn lessons are usually problems.
All right. Well, I guess I'm done then.
You have a relationship. Come in, Aaron. All right, come a little closer. I'm going to give you some relationship advice.
I'm so creeped out right now.
If you constantly have to keep reliving the same problem, like I keep getting parking tickets, you're not learning the lesson that maybe you should park somewhere else, or maybe you should, park in the lines. Guess what? You have a backup camera now in every vehicle, so it's pretty easy to figure out where you got to park.
Man, I still drive my 87 Celica GT. What are you talking about?
If you don't learn these lessons, I mean, you're not going to be great in a relationship because, when things happen, there's mistakes, you got to adjust.
Well, Liz is trying to adjust, finding the nannies, and Aram's not helping her there either. Nope, don't hire her. Don't hire her. And I also love the Manny shout out. The Manny shout out is a cross play for NBC with This Is Us. So I thought that was kind of funny that Liz referenced the Manny.
Okay, and as always, Aram comes through and he's tracing things to Annapolis where they're holding Red. He really didn't have a lot to do this episode.
That was the only thing with this episode that was weird, was the whole 24 time between, like, when did they leave Paris and when were they in Annapolis, and was there a stopover in between? Like, I couldn't, from the scenery, it was hard to tell, like, the French guys that started the episode, if they were in Paris at that time, and then she says, I'll meet you in Annapolis, but the illusionist was already in Annapolis and Katarina was already there. So it's kind of confusing as to where everything was. That was probably the only nit I had from this episode.
Yeah, I didn't have really. It's kind of hard to see. It's kind of hard to have any nitpicks when the episode as a whole isn't done yet. You've got one more hour to really fill in a lot of blanks. So
by the end of the episode, we knew we were in Annapolis. It's just like from the start of the episode, it was like, where are they actually? Are they fully in DC already, Annapolis, or are they, over in Paris still for the first part?
Right. Wrestler doesn't get a lot to do again in this episode, but he admits he knew about Liz.
He did.
And throwing everybody under the bus. What did you think about that big revelation that he came clean on that?
I thought the shrug off from Liz in this conversation was actually interesting. I thought there'd be more dynamic between Wrestler and Liz when Wrestler was like, and I told Reddington I would keep it a secret. So shut your mouth, Liz. And Liz is like, No, I'm just going to tell everybody right now. So I thought there'd be a little bit more fireworks about that and like the ramifications of what would happen if everybody knew. They could have spelled that out a little bit more there in that scene just to get something between Liz and Wrestler. So, but there wasn't. So we just moved on and informed the audience, and now everybody knows.
Yep. Cooper, when here's a cool little side note, I guess. Here's something cool that happened with Cooper this episode that I didn't see coming, but I was really fascinated with. I went back and listened to it a couple times to make sure I got it right. But when he goes and meets the ambassador and he basically is talking to Red, he asks Red a question to verify that it's Red, right? And this is after he realizes that it's not the real Raymond Reddington.
Right.
According to Liz. He says, 30 years ago, Reddington heard classified testimony connected to an intelligence officer killed in Kuwait, Daniel Hutton, is the answer. What do you think that question... to me, that question said he's testing to see if he is the Red that he thinks he is.
Right. Yeah, it was weird because at that point, I know that he's not Raymond Reddington, but then he has the right answer. So at least I know he is our Raymond Reddington today. But yet he also has this information that's classified, which I would assume at this point he's probably trying to put two and two together. Like, did he work for the Cabal? Did he know Alan Alda's character and all this other stuff, Fitch? So it was interesting on how he was trying to decipher that in his head. We didn't get to see Cooper's thought process come out as exposition. So I'd like to see where that goes once Cooper and Red finally do get back together, because there's some questions that are coming. And what I really loved was the line after he says Daniel Hutton. He says, "It is you," and then Red says, "Were you expecting someone else?" I mean, clearly a play on words there for the writing and the situation. But the "it is you" part is interesting because if you go back to the pilot, when Cooper walks in for the very first time and sees Reddington up on the screen, that's when Cooper says, "It really is him." So it's kind of the same question. And he's got two different realizations at two different points in his character arc.
Let me ask you a question, okay? Just think about it before you answer. Don't jump, okay? Do you think it's possible? This is a weird thing I don't think I've really considered. You know, when we heard Ilya and all that other stuff, that was basically a story from Dom, right? So we know not everything's probably true. Just what we saw is probably true, but not everything he said is probably true. Potentially. So is it possible they replaced Raymond Reddington before Kuwait?
I'm trying to remember when Kuwait
she got pregnant. She got pregnant from the real Raymond Reddington, and they replaced him before Kuwait. I know it doesn't make sense with the Ilya, and it doesn't make sense with a lot of the timelines. So please, don't write in. I know all that. I'm just saying, is it possible that maybe they've been diverting attention because they actually replaced him before we think they did?
I'm trying to remember back in season 2 if we got a date on Kuwait of 1991 when season 2 started. And if we got a date of 1991 because of Behind the Blacklist special for season 7, where they basically laid out the timeline in that special to tell you that it was Christmas of 90, and then the disappearance of Katarina was in 1991, shortly thereafter. So the Kuwait thing could happen later in 1991. Kuwait in 91 makes sense because of the Gulf War and everything that was going on. So I'm going to say no. I think whoever Cooper knew is the guy we know today.
Okay. Just curious. It was just an honest question because I kept thinking about it. When he says that and he answers it correctly and he's like, "It is you." This whole time we've been saying Raymond Reddington is, and he is definitely her father. Everybody's verified that, even including John Bokenkamp, that Raymond Reddington is Liz's father and he is dead. Well, what if they replaced him? So Cooper actually did work with this Raymond Reddington. It's just they replaced him before we think they did.
But if he goes under the knife to become Raymond Reddington and they were going to expose him for this submarine thing and the Cabal was all on their tails and whatever, all of that going on, why would he go back to being an enlisted man? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, so that makes it seem like they would have to work beforehand.
Nothing else makes sense. I'm just posing a question, because we don't have all the pieces yet. So at this point, not everybody's argument about whatever you think doesn't really make sense if you put it under a microscope. But I mean, you can make it fit, but it doesn't always work. It was just an honest question. It was just I don't think we've ever really considered it. So is it possible? That's all. I
think the one thing we can 100% say from this exchange, though, is that Cooper is not, because we speculated this long ago, that maybe Cooper was in on the whole ordeal,
He's
right?
not.
He was behind it. This clearly says that Cooper is not part of the illusion, the ruse.
No, I didn't think he was, but I think you thought it's possible.
It's possible.
Right? Yeah. It's definitely not possible now.
No.
All right, when this is over, I look forward to hearing an answer. Of course. I mean, can't anyone just answer questions like when they're asked?
Why would they do that? That would make you happy. You're not a happy
In the
person.
real world, if somebody asked me a question, it's like a huge, I gotta know kind of question. Hey, you know, like we got to talk about this thing. I just found out we got to talk about it pretty quick. Can we do it later? Like now's not really the time. I'm having a moment. All right. Well, you just let me know.
Well, I just need to know, Aaron, chocolate or vanilla.
How about episode 6? Okay. You know what? Episode 6 sounds good to me. Let's do that.
All right. I look forward to your answer in episode 6 on chocolate or vanilla.
Yep. You got it. Strawberry. Liz didn't tell Cooper because he's honest, and I actually like that answer. That was a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's a good moment between the two of them. It still has that father-daughter kind of relationship that they have, looking out for each other. She's looking out for him because of his career, and he's obviously, looking out for her by asking the questions, and why didn't you keep me in the loop?
Renee, a.k.a. the illusionist, like chasing an illusion, huh? He's the guy who set this whole hospital thing up. He essentially orchestrates elaborate cons to convince people that they are in situations they are not for specific end goals. We're not quite sure what Katarina's is yet, except that there's something going on that she needs to know from Red, and she felt like manipulation was the best way to get that information, as opposed to, why not just ask him? I mean, they have this close relationship, so close that he was just happy to see her, and he tracked her down. He wanted to, why wouldn't she just ask him?
Well, we don't know.
That's the question we don't know the answer to yet.
We don't know the motive behind meeting the guy on the bench and then going to Paris to meet her in the first place. Maybe he was going there to warn Katarina that the Townsend initiative had been inactivated.
He said he was going to warn her, so that's known, I would say.
Okay. And then, the question then is, why did she do this to him?
Right.
Is the open question. It's like is there more this is the whole thing about answer the mythology. Okay, Katarina's alive. We assume Raymond Reddington is Ilya, but there's more mythology about what happened in the last 30 years that made her completely despise Red to the point that she has to torture him to get information versus just asking him if they were supposedly partners in the whole thing.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. And I just want to point out, you basically just said everything I just asked in a much more succinct manner, but whatever. So we don't know the answer to this. Well, maybe we'll know at the conclusion of the other episode. I don't know. I don't know.
I can totally understand, though, where the guy was coming from, that he's like, everybody wants to work for the illusionist. Because if you're an actor, it's hard enough to get auditions and get a job. And these people, they made the hospital look real. So, I mean, if you're an actor, this would definitely be somebody you go work for if you could make some money on the side.
Yeah, and I just want to give a shout out. I love David Meniere. He's the gentleman who plays Renee, the actor who plays Renee in this episode. He's one of those guys who he often shows up as a Russian in different things. He was in The Equalizer. He was in Justified as a redneck. He's great with different accents and stuff. So it was nice to hear him just bounce around several accents in one episode. And I think it's great that he's a blacklister because he's an actor. He's a supporting actor usually, or a character actor a lot of times. You don't really see him pop up in something like this where he gets to be the central villain. And it's nice to he's a good actor. I liked watching him.
And he's not dead yet. So there's still a possibility that Red can turn him to be on his payroll.
True. There's always a chance, right? Always a chance. All right. Well, let's move on to Liz. She tells the whole task force about turning him in. Hey guys, guess what? I almost cost everybody their job. My bad. That's an interesting dynamic. And she does elaborate and explains it all like we talked about earlier, but let's lay it down. Red died in 91, was a KGB agent. Cooper says it's impossible he served with him, but kind of thinks he did. And it doesn't matter who he was. And our Reddington is in French custody and we have to get him back. Also, she gives Aram a complete recap, which says Reddington is her father. She shot him at 4. Her mom escapes everyone to access the millions when Ilya becomes Red, and they got the real Reddington's millions.
That he didn't know he had.
So, did any of that, I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit. Did any of it feel weird, though, that they're giving all this in a big bulk recap?
I mean, if you've been watching the show for 6 seasons, you know all this information. So, for me, it wasn't a surprise. I was more surprised, we're going to succinctly tell it to you in 10 seconds or less. That was the part
Get right
that was
to
really kind of interesting. I remember we were watching it, and my wife even turned around and was like, wait, back that up. Did they just basically tell the whole show? And I was like, yeah, they sure did. Or at least what they want you to think.
There's an interesting dynamic here. Liz says, a man I've grown to like. And I want to come back to that, but she's hunting for childcare, so I want to call it right now. Rostova's going to end up as a nanny. I'm almost betting it. Somehow she's going to, because they're putting too much emphasis on the whole nanny thing. But Liz is wondering how this is connected to Katarina Rostova. When I thought he was my father, I thought he abandoned me. Now she knows that he's not her dad and devoted half his life to her. But wouldn't it still be devoted if he was her dad? So I don't quite understand why that was more impressive. I'm like, either way, the guy's still devoted half his life to you, right? So, okay.
These are those moments where you just sit and you go, "Arr," because it's like,
it's the same thing.
Why? I mean, yes, sure, Ilya said to Katarina in that hotel room, I'll protect her like she was my own. But at some point, after this spoiled brat has thrown me in jail, almost gotten me killed, checked into my story when I told her not to. She's done so many things that he'd be like, I'm out, right? Like, you can't get your daughter to clean her room. I'm like, I'm out. I just done with you. Like,
man, you and I are going to differ on this one. I just don't. I know a lot of people don't like how Liz turned him in, and everyone doesn't like all the stuff Liz does. Blah blah blah.
I like what she did. I think the issue is why does he keep staying with her after all of that, unless he's related somehow?
Because he knows he's kind of been a jerk. I mean, he's not exactly like been a dream father figure. I mean, yeah, it fills a void.
He's not her father.
Yeah, I get that, but he keeps acting like one. He's constantly involved in her life. Her whole life, her husband's dead because of him. Her husband was there because of him. Like, everything happens because of this guy. It's kind of hard to not feel a little irritated at some point and bothered by it. That's fair. To get tired of having your life up just in a constant upheaval because of this guy, and you want some answers and he won't tell you anything. How do people not understand and sympathize at least a little bit with Liz at this point? I don't understand that.
Well, from that perspective, I sympathize.
I would do the fake hospital. I would do the stringing him up to that cage thing and having the nurse drain his blood. I would do all that stuff if I was Liz. Because that's how pissed off I'd be. Like, I am sick to death of this. Well, I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that. Oh, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yeah, we're going to find out. I got a jar of peanut butter. I'm going to put you in a cage with some pit bulls, and I'm going to smear you with peanut butter, and we're going to see what happes.
I just saw a whole new side of Aaron that I never want to see in person.
Man, I want some answers. I want the truth.
Oh, my gosh. But yeah, this is the whole thing. It's like, she asked the question, why would he devote like half of her life why would he devote half of his life to her? And that's the whole related thing. It's like, it comes back. It's like, unless you're related, you wouldn't do that. Even if you were madly in love with the daughter's mother.
I don't agree with that. I just don't. I think I've told this story before. I've got a buddy who's married and he has a stepkid, and then they ended up being divorced, and he was still just as involved with that child as his own son. They had a child together too. Just as involved. I mean, didn't change at all. Just because they got divorced didn't change at all. Now, could I do that? I don't know. I mean, I think you have to be in that situation, but there are people who are that devoted that can do it. I saw this guy do it. But I didn't understand it. I'm like, he ain't married no more. You don't have to take him to baseball games. You don't have to do, I mean, I don't mean that's not mean.
But the marriage component of it and the divorce part of it still makes it feel like family, right? This guy has no relation to Liz whatsoever.
To be fair, we don't know their entire relation right now.
Correct.
We just know that they were close, and he obviously in the flashback, if that's to be taken as truth, did love her. That was painfully obvious. He did love her
and said, "I would take care of Liz as my own."
Yeah.
If this is Ilya.
If it's Ilya.
Right.
Which we have to assume at this point, maybe.
Liz told the whole world in 10 seconds or less.
Yeah. Poor Ilya, boy.
We saw it on screen. It must be true.
That part was a little, I mean, you don't have to tell the whole thing, right? Can't you keep a little bit back? But, you trust him at this point. You trust him.
But she brings up the conversation, so it's interesting.
Yep. It's very interesting. Yeah, okay. We'll see what happens. All right, Katarina. Let's move on to Katarina. Oh, but I got to go back to that point. whether it's her dad or it's another guy, that person still devoted half their life. So shouldn't it be just as impressive either way? I would think if you can understand, I guess I don't get that dynamic, that
well, I think what it was,
if he's my dad, he abandoned me, and I don't see it as him devoted. I mean, I kind of get where she's coming from, or where that statement is coming from. It makes sense, I guess, because I hated him because I thought he was my dad and he abandoned me for half my life. But you didn't seem like you hated him until you found out that it wasn't your dad. So I don't know. I'm just confused.
Well, I think this goes to the I love you moment from last year. She's finally realized that there's no relation to this man, yet this man has done everything he can to protect me and keep me safe. Don't I at least owe him something, at least some gratitude, or at least some I'll come find you and save you if you're in trouble? And I think this is kind of that tie-in from the I love you into this. She's doing it because if somebody was looking after me my whole life, I got to now return the favor. And that's what she's basically saying. I'm returning the favor in this episode.
All right. Well, we'll see where that goes next week. Katarina is this Katarina Rostova. I'm
like 80-20 Katarina. There's like this small...
So you're like bad lean beef.
Yeah, there's like this small
like that causes grease fires, just so you know. I found that out a couple weeks
maybe
ago.
85-15, just so we can make sure people don't die.
Okay.
But at this point, it's just like there's moments that make me go, I just can't trust it. Like when she's talking to Renee on top of the roof, and it seems like it's more like a cabal government conspiracy thing than it truly is Katarina. And then there's that whole conversation that we'll have in Red's rhetoric about Red, like Katarina and I share a soul. And it's like, well, come on, John, you're like literally throwing it back in my face at that point about the Red Arena theory. Because it's like, he's literally saying they're like the same person. But yet this is supposed to be Katarina. So they're not the same person, you know?
Soulmate.
Yeah.
Not soulmate.
But either way, the conversation made it sound like, you know, like we're closer than you think. And you have to sit there and go, what does that mean? But yeah, I mean, to me, I think that all rests on the Townsend Initiative. And because Dembe said Townsend Initiative is inactivated, that causes Raymond to go look for Katarina to warn her. And now Katarina is trying to ask the question of who is the Townsend Initiative and why are they after me and who triggered it? I think that makes it say, yes, this has to be Katarina at this point.
Yeah, I'm with it being Katarina. Now, I don't think we know the entirety of her story, and there's still a lot going on that I don't quite understand. But I don't know, at this point, he calls her Katarina at the end of the season last year. We're constantly talking about Katarina. People are starting to put together that maybe Katarina is still alive. We're hearing tons of talk about them pursuing Katarina. I don't have any reason to believe it's not Katarina, other than the prejudices in our own mind from years of watching the show.
Correct.
I really feel like our memories are working against us in this. Like they're literally saying it's Katarina over and over and over, and still some of us like, I don't know. But I mean, they're being quite clear about it to me. I mean, even her name in the credits was Katarina.
Yeah,
they could say woman or something if they wanted to.
Yeah, but at the same time, what was it that she's dead, but she's not dead? You know. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to say what it is in the moment, right? At this point, like we know Ilya's Ilya, we know Katarina's Katarina, so you have to call them what they are. The entire thing that Liz spells out in this episode is what Liz knows at this point, but is it really the truth? It's what Liz knows, so we have to accept it as truth until we're told something else.
And I want to be clear on that because you said soul earlier. Katarina and I shared a soulmate. That's what Red said. What that means, I don't know, but it sounds like they both love the same person.
Yeah, that was the one line where I kind of like tilted my head like, did he just say that? Is that weird? Like, what does that mean?
That 100% to me says, I mean, obviously there's more going on. Why would a man do this? Well, there's more to his story than we know, obviously. And this seems to be Katarina pretty clearly. There's a whole bunch of stuff we don't know. We don't understand the relationship, especially, you know, why is she willing to even, you know, torture Red in this way? Because this is still kind of a form of torture. And at the end, you know, she's still torturing him. So she's obviously willing to torture him for whatever information she wants to know. But she's used, you know, if it was Ilya, something had to have happened.
Right.
Because something horrible had to have happened because she obviously is not the same person she seemed to have been at the end of that one.
Correct. Like 30 years strains a relationship over time.
Yeah, it makes you hard. And we find out she's pretty ruthless. I mean, and she looks great in a killer pantsuit, whatever that was. I mean, some flowing fabric. I dug it. But she's pretty ruthless, man. She kills a man over kindness. Sad. But what about here's what she says at one point. What about the Elizabeth Keene intel? Is it solid? She says that. What about the Elizabeth Keene intel? Is it solid? Get it to the movers just in case. I'm just taking that line that was said in the episode and telling you, I think she's going to be a nanny at some point.
Well, and that's the one line too, where I was like, is Elizabeth Keene intel, is it solid? Like, that makes me go, well, you're her mom.
Yeah.
Like, what is that supposed to mean when you say it like that? Are you trying? I mean, it could be written in such a way that it's trying not to tip everybody else that there's a relationship there, and she's hiding it from her associates. I could totally buy into that, but at the same time, as an audience member, I'm like, Elizabeth Keene intel. You know, she's your daughter. Of course, the intel is what it is.
But to her, she called her by her adopted name, not by her actual name, Masha.
Right. Well, it's because that's how everybody else knows her in the world, is Elizabeth Keene.
Right. Well, I get that, but I'm saying that could be why it sounds so cold when she says it, when she's like, you know, that you got the Elizabeth Keene intel. Is it solid? If it was Masha, that seems more personal. So maybe she's trying to keep it more professional and not tipping her hat to people that it is her daughter. I don't know.
Yeah, because they said they didn't even know who there was. She was just a Russian lady that hired them. Like, they didn't know that she was Katarina Rostova herself.
Right. So maybe she's trying to keep that to herself.
So what's the intel? That she's home,
that we don't know.
Where she lives, that Agnes is with her?
Just get it to the movers just in case. That sounds to me like, that's why I just keep saying nanny, like she's going to move into the city or move nearby or something.
Yeah, it was kind of all over the map, the nanny stuff. It's like, it's too front and center Chekhov's gun and not have it pay off to be something.
Thank you. That's what I kept saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she says, I don't like this, Raymond. The whole ordeal pains me. To me, their whole conversation at the end, they do know each other very clearly.
Yeah, but that line, the whole ordeal pains me, is also something a psychopath says.
Well, I mean, she could very well. I mean, 30 years hardened you. She might not be the same person she used to be. That might be why he won't tell her whatever she needs to know.
True.
Or wants to know. All right, so Red, well, I mean, we've kind of already covered it, but he wakes up not being able to feel his legs. Apparently, this is an interesting portion. Apparently, the task force has an 0100 number, and that's how they know he's held.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Except
you call the number, you ask for the lawyer, and then we say, hey, the lawyer's in custody, which technically he wasn't he? Or is Marvin actually still on the banana plantation?
I think he's on the banana plantation. I think he's free now.
Yeah.
But the illusionist seems to know about it because, I mean, he sent the fake ambassador or whatever. So why does he even bother calling him? Or did he just send the fake ambassador to feel this guy out?
I think there was, because they know that they're not in Paris. They know they're in Annapolis. And so when Red says he's trying to get information about Katarina, so he's calling the number to get information about Katarina. When he finds out it's the FBI, and he's like, oh, okay, well, we can't meet here because it's fake. So let's meet in Paris at the embassy. But he knows that the real French people don't have them, so he has to make up another illusion. And so that's why he sends the fake attaché to meet up with Cooper. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay. I mean, I'll take your word for it on that one. Well, we find out at the end that Red puts together what we already figured out, that he's in a fake hospital, and he begins his wily ways to take a gun and hold the nurse hostage. I really dug that whole scene, like how he managed to use the light to his advantage, and he got the gun, and then he got the nurse to work for him.
And the music.
What's that?
And the music on the radio to turn it up to mask. Yeah.
But it all ends up with him being caught again, and now torture begins. And I do want to say, I was sitting there going, well, that's a little far-fetched. Then we find out why it was far-fetched, because they kind of let it happen to a degree. Right?
And I would go back to James's comment about the whole DNA fingerprinting and just like everything that happened in the room in order to make that all happen. I think that was 100% plausible. So I would say that the writers did a pretty good job of, he backs up, he tries to figure out where the dead spots are for the camera. He tries to find different ways to steal the phone. And then he, figures out the whole light and the radio thing, plus the music to mask it. I just want to know where the tech people are versus where this hospital is, because if the camera goes out, the first thing you do is go in the room. That's the only probably TV part of it that was a little unbelievable. Like you'd be on that much faster than they were. Like, I can't get a picture.
Yeah. That was, I mean, I get they didn't want to blow the cover, but that was a little bit of stretch. But then they did say, we can get in there, and he's already gone. And so they catch him outside, and then you've got Katarina, busting his chops and putting him back in. Then we start the blood dripping. I mean, it was a crazy episode. It was a whole lot of setup for whatever episode 2 is going to be. So I feel like we'll have to leave it there because we're kind of left on a cliffhanger. So we're going to have to leave you on a cliffhanger. We can't talk about much more because nothing else has happened yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that we really have to look for next week is, how does Red escape? And that was our profiling question. How does Red escape? Are they going to find Katarina? Is Katarina going to abandon him there? Is he going to escape on his own? Is the nurse going to help him out? I mean, there's so many different ways that next week could go. It's going to be an exciting episode next week. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I can't wait, man. I'm like really stoked. I thought this was a really fun episode. It was a good introduction. It was a nice recap for everybody that didn't remember all the stuff that's going on. Because let's be honest, unless you listen to this podcast and you're really one of the devoted fans, there's a lot of devoted fans, don't get me wrong. Unless you're one of those, it's hard to remember all the stuff that has happened. My wife doesn't listen to every episode of our podcast, if any. And, she watches the show and she remembers a lot of stuff. She's got a pretty retentive memory, but she forgot some of the finer details. So that recap actually helped her, which was nice. And now we're kind of all in the same, we're all starting the game even for the most part.
Right.
And I do think it's Katarina.
I think it's Katarina too.
Does that still make you cry because it's not Red Arena?
Hey, I 6 seasons, man. That theory went, so I'm pretty impressed that it went as long as it did.
Yeah, a little bit disappointed though. Just a little bit.
Hey, we'll see what happens.
I'm not even. Let's get moving on. All right. We're going to come back next week. We're going to have a lot more stuff. We've still got some stuff here left, so don't just bail just yet. I want to take a second and say thank you to those of you that are supporting the show by going to Patreon. That's patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. That's patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. Interviews are posted there as well as the panel from C2E2 and even an after the panel special podcast that you can't get anywhere else. And if we hit $500 a month, we will do this show live on camera so you can see our smiling most of the time faces, and when we get into a great argument like we probably will at the end of next week's episode because we finally have some details. And if you can make it happen to hit $1,000 a month, we will work on a meetup to watch the season finale live in person.
That is Patreon, patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. Fill the fedora, get some awesome rewards for yourself, like coffee mugs and t-shirts. If you're at that $20 level, that seems to be a popular one. And we'll be back with Red's Rhetoric right after this.
There's something really strange about the town called Castle Rock.
And J.J. Abrams and Hulu are bringing some of Stephen King's Castle Rock stories to life. Or to death.
Join us, Jeff Gentry and Wayne Henderson, in the Castle Rock Zone as we share your thoughts about each episode of Hulu's Castle Rock.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast and be part of the fun at CastleRockZone.com. Part of the Golden Spiral Media Podcast Network.
Hey, Dembe loyals, this is Hisham Tawfiq. You are listening to Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
Welcome to Red's Rhetoric, that part of the show where we feature 2 of Red's scenes from the show, and then you get to vote which is your favorite over on the website. Just look for the Louis T. Steinhil post at theblacklistexposed.com or click the link in the show notes on your favorite podcast player. Our first clip this week comes when Cooper, like the rest of the audience, tries to identify Red's identity.
Yes.
30 years ago, Raymond Reddington heard classified testimony in connection with a U.S. intelligence officer killed in Kuwait. What was the soldier's name?
Daniel Hutton.
So it is you.
Were you expecting someone else?
I wasn't sure. Now I am. Is it true about your injuries?
It is. But I've been paralyzed before. The spine of a blowfish pierced my wetsuit off.
Satisfied?
Not remotely. An extradition request will be made within the hour.
Cheer up. I'm a man of my word. You did as I asked, so I'll tell you what you're dying to know.
About Rostova?
The blowfish. I was stung off Pitcairn Island during a brief assignation I had with a rapturous descendant of Fletcher Christian.
Our second comes when Red talks about his symbiotic relationship with Katarina.
It appears your American friends, they are more fond of you than I had anticipated. They've asked my government to consider extradition proceedings. Now, sadly for you, that will not be considered by the French government unless I sign off. And I will not consider that until after you have told me about Katarina Rostova.
I may not have told you what you want, but I told you all you need. You'll never find Rostova.
Oh, yes, because she's an illusion. What does that mean?
She's a figment of the collective imagination.
I don't believe you. In fact, I am thinking that she did this to you.
Did she?
Why are you protecting her?
Some people in this world are soulmates. Katarina Rostova and I shared one. Betraying her would be like betraying myself.
Which was your favorite? If you ever had an injury scare, vote #RedBlowfish. Or if you feel a close connection between Red and Katarina, vote #RedSoul. All right. Well, this is where we normally do special agent intel, and we normally take thoughts on the episode from all of you at this time. But because it's a two-parter, we're going to take all of those after the conclusion next week. So if you have thoughts, save them until you see the two-parter next week and then call those on in. You can do those a few ways. Hit us up in the Facebook group. Hit us up on Twitter at the Blacklist GSM. You can even use the comments on this episode post case profile over at theblacklistexposed.com. Put them in there and we'll make sure that we read all of those next week.
And that's going to conclude this episode. By the way, 6 seasons are on Netflix right now, so now is the time to recommend The Blacklist to your friend, your enemy, your frenemy, your neighbor. And when you do, please also recommend that they listen and subscribe to the Blacklist Exposed podcast. What a great accompaniment this show could be to somebody that likes The Blacklist, but they just found it. All the case profiles can be found at theblacklistexposed.com and everywhere great podcasts can be heard. And even mediocre ones. We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. For more great Aaron and Troy hijinks, follow us on your favorite social media outlet. I am at Troy Heinrichs. He's at Aaron Smirks. And together we are at the Blacklist GSM. Talk about the show, the podcast, or your favorite way to dodge a surveillance camera.
Ooh, be sure to enhance. Always enhance.
Zoom in.
Big thanks for listening. Don't forget to answer our profiling question. How will Red escape from Katarina? Oh, by the way, Troy, I forgot to tell you something.
Okay.
You're a dum-dum.
Two-parter next week, same bat time, same bat channel. We will see you shortly thereafter. Have a good week, everybody. Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs. That's at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsider.com or on Twitter at 5popcorn. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of the Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.